So welcome to Stacking Wisdom, episode number 2. We're here with Beth. Do you want to tell us more about yourself and what you do? And
Sure. So I've been working freelance graphic design for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And then last March, I quit the day job at a marketing agency and went full-time for myself.
Amazing.
And that was, it's now been a full year. So I'm celebrating my 1 year of full-time entrepreneurship. And then in that first year, I've won 4 Reader's Choice Awards, and I'm right now
That's
nominated
incredible.
for Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Oakville. So
Congratulations. That's awesome.
that's super exciting.
Who did you get nominated by? Who gave you those awards?
So the way that they do Reader's Choice Awards are done by just general nominations, so either clients or that kind of thing, and then it's really just a popularity contest. It's how many people can you get to click to vote for you.
Yeah, sure.
And it's kind of just like the internet is my friend, and people will push the button. So as nice as they are, they're just like, if you know enough people, you'll win Reader's Choice Awards.
Yeah.
But the Young Entrepreneur Award there's 5 nominees, including myself, and that was more of a process. That was, I don't know how you find out who nominated you, but like you're nominated, and then you have to do like a qualifying screening questionnaire, and then you have to write an essay, and then you have to interview with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
People.
Very cool.
So and then they finalize it down. So I find out that next Wednesday on the 27th.
Wow, that's
Awesome.
amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that one will be a little more exciting because that's like, you actually have to earn it. You can't just you can't just get people to push the button for you.
Yeah.
So what made you sort of wanted to, go out on your own and like start your own business and like, I mean, obviously it's kind of a scary world, right? I mean,
it is.
And like you're going off on your own, and because it's like a super niche thing because there's a lot of other graphic designers out there, right? I mean, it's sort of challenging. So tell us more about that.
For me, when I started, originally when I graduated college, I was working for an event company doing their graphic design, and mainly for like large corporate events. So oil companies, banks, like big, giant
like a big
parties.
variety of
big,
different industries too,
big
right?
industries, but like big money. And it was a little soul-sucking. Because it's like, you'd realize, okay, this oil company is spending like $200,000 on a Christmas party.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, sure. But like, there's just in my mind, there was like so many other things that money could have been spent on. And so making bar signs for that kind of stuff, just like, so then after I had my son, I took my mat leave, didn't go back. And then I was working at a marketing company in Burlington, and they had more small business clients. So I still got that variety of like working for a bunch of different industries, but the small businesses, they have like the super fiery passion. They still love what they do, right? So I'd be working with them, and they'd be like super excited about their logo. They'd be, they'd want to tell you everything about their business and how they're going to grow it. And like, it wasn't just can you make me this flyer? I just need a flyer. It was like, they wanted input. They wanted to be like fully involved in it. They wanted all that. So that to me, I'm like, that's what I want to do forever.
Yeah.
And then, so like, and that I had always been kind of freelancing with. And then when I quit, it was, I wanted to take March break off. And it wouldn't have really worked. So I used that as my reason to quit my day job. And to be fair, like the boss that I was working with at the marketing company, she was amazing. Like I learned so much from her in the span of the 2 years I was there. And she like, I was like, I'm going to go off on my own. And like her owning the business, she didn't even blink. She was like, yeah, I kind of knew it was coming. Wish you all the luck. And like, she's still where I do all my emergency printing and like that kind of stuff. So like, I still have that good relationship there. But
that's amazing that you still do that, because it doesn't always work out that way, right?
No, it really doesn't.
It really doesn't.
Both the event company and the marketing company, both of them I still use for things. Because like, there's no reason to burn bridges, but
because you think it's sort of competition to some extent, right?
There was there's a little, the Reader's Choice Awards, there were a little bit of competition, because I quit and then I found out that I won Best Graphic Design for Burlington, and then they took second place, which was because I was the graphic designer there too.
It's a small world, I suppose.
Well, funny because it was technically winning twice.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But other than that, like there's not really any competition. There's lots of things where like a client will be like, I want to do this massive marketing campaign and, you know, pump out 25,000 flyers and all of that stuff, and that type of stuff, it's almost to a scale that I don't really want to get involved in. So that's the type of stuff I pass back, and I say, you know what, she can help you, because they specialize in that scale of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it gets to that point, I'm like I'll help you with your branding, and then I'll pass that branding guideline off to Karen, and she'll make the rest of that happen.
Do you feel like with the introduction of the internet and the way it's sort of evolved in the last 15, 20 years, you know, do you feel like that sort of affected the way that advertising really works? I mean, I don't really believe in the print stuff as much anymore. I mean, it can work to some extent.
It depends on how you're using it.
If you have so let's say like if you're a shop, right, and if you have like flyers or something like describing the services that you offer versus
if you're a brick and mortar,
exactly.
It makes sense to have some print available. So when somebody comes in and doesn't know what you do, you can say, here's what I do.
Yeah.
The other time it works is the only time flyers really work, as far as I'm concerned, obviously there's lots of people with different opinions, is if you run something that directly helps the homeowner.
Sure.
Because then, you know what I mean, it's going right to their mailbox. They'll be like, oh, I do need my lawn mowed, or I do need my, you know, drainage pipes cleaned, or whatever. It's that kind of like initial like, oh, I'm going home, I'm already thinking about my house, I just took this out of my mailbox and I do actually need that service.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I like print for the purpose of networking. So if you're going to a lot of networking events, I like postcards. Normally I don't have just business cards. I have a postcard with my face on it and all of the information of things that I do, so that if I don't get to talk to the person, you know when you go in and like they have a table of business cards, I stick mine there with my face on it, and it's like if I'm actually talking to you, I'll hand you an actual business card.
Yeah.
But realistically, if I'm not going to get to talk to all 200 people in the room. So here's a postcard with my face. So if you did talk to me or you did see me, but I didn't give you a card, like you know what I look like, and you'll be like, oh, that's the blonde.
Sure.
That's what she does, right?
Yeah.
So for that, I like print, and for the purpose of being able to like, if you have a bigger service that you offer, so for example like home renovations and that kind of thing, one of my clients, Merchant Builds, the way they do it is they do like welcome packages. So they have like a really nice portfolio folder, and in it it's got all the information about the build and who the builders are for that project. So these are the guys who are going to be in your house. Here's all so it comes in like a nice package. It's like, but then again, like if you're spending $100,000 on a kitchen project, you better get a damn nice folder.
No kidding.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's the level of professionalism.
You got to present it in a nice package, right? So
absolutely.
I believe in branding so much. I think that it's definitely
packaging is huge.
Yeah.
So what sort of drove you to kind of to take that first step, like to take that leap into like doing the business on your own? I mean, like obviously, your boss recognized it, and you must have some sort of like entrepreneurship, like
I was always
drive, right?
I was always doubling it, where I was like freelancing when I got home, work the day job, freelance on the side, and then like I took my mat leave and I extended it by 8 months because I was like, just gonna work from home with a baby, because like that's the logical thing to do when you just have a baby. You work a full-time job at home with the infant. So for me, there's always been that like overworking, thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, okay, well, we're gonna go just that one step. And
so it was almost like a natural progression.
It was a natural progression.
That sort of grew into that, right?
To be completely honest, the way that it came about is when I was debating for months about whether or not I was going to quit the day job. But getting rid of like the benefits and the full-time pay was a little scary. So
well, that's the little works, right?
So it was one of those things that eventually just, when I couldn't get March break off, my ex-husband was like, okay, well, this is the giant neon sign to quit your day job. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you know what? Your brother is doing a better job at this whole business owner thing than you. And I'm really competitive. So as soon as he was like, well, your baby brother's beating you at it, then I was like, well,
you had to prove him,
I guess I have to go full-time entrepreneur now. So so that was like, okay, well, I guess like if my brother's doing it, I have to do it too.
Yeah.
And like my family's always owned businesses. I don't think there's really any of us that haven't owned a business at some point.
So entrepreneurship kind of like runs in the
hugely. Like it's It's literally like if you only have one job. My family's like, what do you mean you only have one job? You only have one career.
You only work 9 to 5? What's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, like my dad's a firefighter and then
wow, okay, that's amazing.
But then works construction, and right now he's building a boat and like helps my brother build houses. Like
what sort of a boat? Like what kind of boat?
Sailboat.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, there's literally like, what do you mean you only have one job? That's not a thing. Like,
wow, that's crazy.
There's always that like, you got to do at least 2 or 3 really big things at a time, or you're not really doing anything. There's no middle ground.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're doing that with a lot of other stuff too that you're involved in.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that, and like what is it that you're trying to sort of accomplish with the additional sort of connection that you're trying to build with
the small business
with the small business. Yeah.
So with me, I found originally the small business owner Facebook group was an accident. Like literally a complete accident. The girl that was running it when we started, it was only a few hundred of us. And she was like, you know what, this doesn't benefit my business at all. Like, she's like, I'm putting all this time into this community and it really isn't getting me anywhere.
But can you tell us more, just like more of a background, like what was it before?
Yeah, so originally
and like what was the purpose behind
still
it?
a small business group, but it was meant for, there was maybe more than a handful of us. There was like a bunch of us, and it was just a spot for us to say, shit guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Help. And then, and it was just for Burlington, and then it was just for like Halton, and then it was for like a little bit further, and then we were like, all right. So
you started to scale.
It's got to be all of Southern Ontario now. And then I took it over 2 years, almost 3 years ago, and it was like 600 people when I took it over, and we're creeping up now. We're like 10 people away from 2,500. So
well, we can be the 2 additional people that join the group.
There you go.
So I think we definitely want to be a part of it. We'd love to come to one of the events too, I think.
So we're getting there. Okay. So as it's growing, it's just kind of been one of those, like I have some admins that help, keep the weird stuff out.
Sure.
But as it's been growing, like we've always had a really strict no promotion policy. So nobody in the group is there to just do the whole like post and ghost where they're like, look what I do, and then they don't contribute. Everyone there is willing to contribute and have the discussions and like share their experiences as business owners. So there's no there's just none of that fear of like you can join it without being scared that somebody's going to try to sell you something every 2 seconds.
Of course.
So it becomes a little bit more genuine. And so growing that, now it's kind of grown my business a little bit more organically, because as I'm moderating that, I'm being able to like support the small business owners when they get stuck on their branding, when they get stuck on their graphic design. Where do I get things printed? Like, so I've kind of built myself as somewhat of an authority on those topics because I can see what they're struggling with. And then I know, okay, well, this is what you're struggling with. This is what you need me to help you with. So now it's like somebody will say, hey, I need some postcards made, and there'll be like 25 people saying, hey, get her to do it.
Nice.
So it works out pretty well.
So can you give us some examples as to like how, something that's like maybe out of the ordinary, right? That's happened in the group that a person was able to get some sort of help, right? So I mean,
well, we had a little while ago, we had somebody like lose their accountant, just in the sense that like the relationship faded or whatever.
Sure.
And then throughout discussions, we realized there was a lot of us who lost the same accountant. Like we were all fired.
Man.
We were all fired, which it happens. But so for that came up, and it was like, crap. There's like at least 20 of us between Oakville and Hamilton who need an accountant, and it's tax season. So then you're like, shit. Now what? So with that, we had just had we had an accountant join the group like fairly recently beforehand. He was like participating really well in the conversations, and he didn't drop anything weird.
Didn't get banned or anything?
He didn't get banned. He didn't get like, he was really good. So anyways, so I messaged Steve, and I'm like, hey, I need you to take over the group on Saturday because we've got 20 of us that need an accountant. So if you could just share all your accounting knowledge, and like we do small business Saturday takeovers, so a business can just say, I want to share my business with the group, and they can take over the page for the Saturday and talk about what they do.
Right.
So I was like, I need you to just share all of your knowledge because like there's a whole bunch of us. We need an accountant, and you're an accountant. And he was like, oh, sure, okay, because like what business owner is going to say no to that, right? Like, please come talk to these 2,500 people and tell us how to do our accounting.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job. He jumped in and he gave us so much information, and at least even if like the nice part is that he didn't even do the whole like, you know, just hire me. It was, here's what you need to find when you're looking to hire an accountant.
Yeah.
So it was like, even if you're not going to hire me, still pay attention to these things, right?
So like pre-qualifying things that they should be looking for,
like
right?
ask about this, ask about this, make sure they know, you know, all these other points. And so for that, like you end up with people who are a little bit more prepared to actually go hire an accountant, right? Like there's the whole part of small business ownership where we're like, we can do everything ourselves. No, you can't. Guys, you cannot do everything yourself. Please stop trying. It's bad. Just don't do it. I don't fix my own car. I bring it to a mechanic. It's the same thing with your taxes and your branding and all that stuff.
As a business owner, I'm sure like there's so many things that you're involved with. You know that it just takes up so much more of your time, and
it does.
It's just better sometimes to just outsource it to somebody else who's gonna do a much better job for you, right? So it's So what would they need in terms of like pre-qualifications in order for them to join this group? Is it just
it's
free?
It's a completely free community group.
Right,
so it's on Facebook. If you type in small business owners of Southern Ontario, it's just a free Facebook group, and
awesome.
That's literally all.
You're probably gonna have to need to hire like a full-time moderator or somebody who takes care of it, because it seems to like just scale so much, right? Like
So we're growing at about like 200 people a month.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's
we
great.
have like there's for admins there's like myself and Jessica Waugh. She's a photographer that I work with, and then we have like a handful of moderators who just like pre-approve the posts and like pre-screen the people and like. Because it is Southern Ontario, so when you said like prerequisites, you have to like there are questions like you just have to be a business owner in Southern Ontario.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well,
and like we check that you're not from Bangladesh or something, because there's
not
a lot
from Woodward or something, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like we check that kind of stuff, but other than that, it's like there's a lot of people who are like, I don't have a business, but I think I want to start one. Come on in, like that's all fine.
Yeah, fantastic.
But we do, at the very least, we do try to keep it Canadian. Like we do have a handful of people from like different provinces, and like their answers would be like, I'm not in Southern, and like they outright tell you, I'm not in Southern Ontario, but I've heard really great things about the group, and I really want to join, and can you please make the exception? And I'm like, yeah.
So maybe you should start like offshoots off of it, or just make like a big Canadian one, right?
That. There are there's no shortage of networking groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
But the big thing with keeping it Ontario-based is for taxes.
Of course,
so there's a lot of like
different regulations,
tax questions. Right? Yeah, there's a lot of that type of stuff where it's like, how do I start a business in Ontario? What do I need? What do I need for business numbers, registration, like all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit easier to keep that organized when it's an Ontario business. But there are obviously like, we have members who only sell product in the States through Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like I'm mind boggled that that's even a thing. Like none of their product ever comes into Canada, but they live in Canada. They live in.
So they still have to file technically in Canada. So
but it's like their whole business doesn't even come anywhere.
It's like the internet
Canada.
sort of allow people to
the
kind of.
The internet is a wonderful place. I love it.
Open up the scope of where they can do business.
I have like I've done branding for clients in like 8 or 9 different countries now.
Wow.
And most of it is.
How do they find you?
Well, like some of them it was through those blog question groups on Facebook where it was like, okay guys, I'm trying to start a blog and I don't know what I'm doing. And like some of them it's through Google, which like there's apparently in Australia there's like an Ontario town in Australia, so they typed graphic design Ontario,
and then it comes up to that makes sense, right?
So like that type of thing
just like saying like Burlington, and like there's Burlington, Vermont, right?
And that's it. So like there's been a few things like that where it's been an accident,
right?
And like some of it's just been through like social media, and like I've gotten a lot of like weird connections just through like Instagram and like that type of thing, just because the internet is...
Well, that's how we found you too, right? So to some extent, right?
Like the internet is a great place. There's no shortage of people, especially if you're like hashtag hunting.
Yeah.
Like,
are you guys putting out any sort of content in terms of like video on like about the group or like meetups or anything like that?
We do networking events.
Right.
Not gonna lie, I've been slacking a little bit on that because everything else is so much bigger. That's how that
Well, that's
works.
why I think you need to hire somebody full time to run this, right?
Yeah.
So
I know. I need like an event coordinator.
yeah.
But what we have coming up in the next little while is I've started videoing our small business owner interviews.
Right.
So I'm interviewing the small business owners who support other small business owners.
I saw it on your Instagram actually
Yes,
today. Yeah, that's awesome.
The little teaser opener started.
Nice. Okay.
So I did we filmed the first one yesterday, and then
Amazing.
I have a whole other day on the 28th, a whole day of it.
That's awesome.
So,
Good for you. Yeah.
so that'll be coming out, and then that will kind of bring a little bit more content into that. The other thing we do is we.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Like, what
so-
sort of questions? Like, what is this going to be about? Like,
So-
what is the content?
Yesterday, I was interviewing Jillian Bowman from Hijink Strategies. So she writes small business marketing strategies
Okay.
for small business owners.
Sure.
And her background is in like large scale corporate agency strategy making.
Right.
So she would get small business owners when she started her own business going, can you help me with my social media marketing? She's like, okay, well, where does that fit in your strategy? And they're like, oh, you mean my business plan? And she's like, no, your strategy.
Yeah.
So when I met her, she goes, well, like, how's your business strategy going with your business? And I looked at her like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I've been winging it for the last year.
Most people don't ever try to sort of dedicate their time to
that was it.
actually developing the goals that they want to set
Yeah.
out in terms of marketing and where they want to be a year from now,
Exactly. Yeah.
6 months from now, and it's kind of one of the things that can make you really successful as a business is
huge.
dedicating your time and actually putting in the effort to try
Planning
to
it.
plan your ahead, or
Yeah.
sort of creating a strategy, whether it be social media or something like that, right? And then it needs to be continuous, and it needs to be something that maybe retargets some of the people that have shown interest in your business, right?
That's been a huge part for me for this year. So in December, she did like a week-long how to write your business strategy. Because realistically, like, I can't afford to pay her to write it for me.
Oh, of course, yeah.
She's way out of my snack bracket. Can't do it. Totally stole that snack bracket line straight from her mouth.
Yeah.
But I had her. So I
You
had
made
her
it your own,
sit
though,
down.
right? So
I had her sit down, and she literally ran a week-long session of, we're gonna write your strategy out for 2019. And so like I started, that was in December, and I started putting things into practice in December, and that kind of started.
Do you feel
going.
like it's making a difference
Oh my
for
God.
you?
By mid-January, I had
Really?
finished
Okay.
my January month.
Yeah.
Like I had hit my targets by the 10th or
Incredible.
the 11th, and I had to do
Yeah.
the whole like, holy shit, I'm not actually ready for this, Jillian. Like I'm not
Yeah.
ready for this amount of work that's coming in, and like I think I need I don't have an assistant yet. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of like, can we just slow down?
Well, in a way, it's
Yeah.
good because it's allowing you to scale, and then maybe
Yes, well,
you can
that's
bring
what it
additional
is.
people on
Yeah,
board, right?
so
And
I
you can
had,
grow your business too that way.
I take interns every year. I take them from Sheridan College. So I had.
I went to Sheridan actually. And
Yeah,
so
so
did
did
my
I.
brother.
So did
Yeah,
I.
Yeah, so I
amazing.
had one
Yeah.
in October, and then I took her back again in February and March, and then I took an additional one in February and March as well. So then they graduate in April, and the one I've done the whole like. So when you've graduated and when you're ready, you're gonna let me know how many hours a week you want, and you're just gonna come and work.
Yeah.
Because I already know she knows how to keep up. I already know her style of work. I know that she can work from home, no problem, and still get everything done the way that I
You've
expect
trained
it to
her
be.
probably. You've
And
put
I've
in the
trained-
effort,
I've
right?
put
Yeah.
160 hours into her training. So
Yeah.
I'm like, please let me know as soon as you're ready.
I'm sure it benefits both parties too.
It does,
There's nothing wrong with
absolutely.
that,
Well,
right?
and
For sure.
the big thing too is like, it's scary when you start thinking of hiring people, because you're like, will they work? Like I worked stupidly, right? Like I work to an absurd amount where it's like, okay, like my kids will be like, why are you still working? It's 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, I'm working because I have to.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, I like what I do as much as I like any of my other hobbies.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
for me, it's like, I'm having a great night. People are like, oh, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, nothing. I'm going to sit at home in pajamas and I'm going to work until 2 in the morning and it's going to be great. I'm going to drink wine. I'm going to build a website. It's going to be beautiful.
But it's good in a way because it builds up,
of course,
sort of, that perception in their minds that you have to have that work ethic, right?
You have to
you have to keep yourself dedicated to the cause, right?
Yeah,
so it's,
for sure.
And there are definitely days I don't want to do it. It's, to be completely honest, there are days where I'm like, I don't even want to open the laptop,
all have those days,
right?
But of course.
When you look at the grand scheme of things, there's no other way that I would like my life to go. Like, I pick up my kids from school every day. I don't have to worry about sticking them in daycare. I have that if they, want to go to a library at 3 p.m, okay, we can do that. We don't have that, like, that weird
super duper
I don't
structured
have to worry about
routine.
Daycare. I don't like the summer. They're just home all summer. Like, it's the freedom to be able to say, like, okay, I'm still gonna work, say maybe 6 hours a day, and then spend the rest of the time with my family. And then once my kids are in bed, then I can go ahead and throw in another 6 hours. Like, building there's no entrepreneur in the world who only works a 40-hour work week.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
It doesn't exist. Well, like, it might, but if it does, it's because you're working for somebody else too, which means you're still working more than 40 hours. So,
do you feel like that sort of makes it a little bit challenging because it's kind of hard to find that balance because have your kids there all the time and at the same your business is there all the time, but it's sort of like like it's kind of like juggling, right?
Yeah. So one of those things that like one of the big highlights to doing like Jillian's course in December was that her whole plan was called like Business and Life Inevitable Success Strategy. So it's literally building your business to fit in your life and your life to fit in your business.
That's fantastic.
So she was like, if you only have 3 hours a day during the day, say you have 5 hours while they're at school, you build your business to fit in those 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then, like, any other hours you get in is bonus hours.
I think that's great because it sort of allows you to kind of eliminate all that procrastination that you might have because you know exactly you have those 5 hours, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, for
sure.
So
building that in, it's like, okay, I know, for example, like, I know if I want to take off, so March break just happened. And I spent 2 days at my dad's and 3 or 4 days at my mom's. Kids had a blast. I worked Wednesday. I worked one day. I had a meeting on a Thursday, and then Thursday morning, and then I, disappeared again.
Thank you for taking the time to come meet with us and talk on a podcast.
That's all. But like, my point is that, like, knowing, I was like, okay, I built in my strategy. I want March break off. So the week before, I did all of the actual like business nitty gritty that had to get done during March break. I did it the week before. So that I still have client work, but it's like I can easily do that anywhere. As long as I have my laptop, I'm good. So I'm like, there's no reason I can't work from my dad's once the kids are in bed. There's no reason I can't work from my mom's or, take, and then take the Saturday off and go shoot things. Like, there's the whole, like, ability to fit in all of the hobbies and all of the life and all of the everything if okay, I'm only going to plan on working 4 or 5 hours. Because then you're not overpiling it. If I say I have an 8-hour day when I know I only have a 5-hour day, there's always going to be 3 hours of work where I'm like, now what? I'm not going to be able to fit that in.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that people sort of dedicate themselves fully when they know they have that whole day.
Yes.
Right? It's more of like, well, I have another hour. I can just slack off for an hour and go on Facebook and like do whatever.
So
but like if you have that sort of amount of time set, aside for that day, you just know you have to get things done, right?
And you're a little more
so
willing
it's almost like a drive that kind of comes in behind it.
Well, and you know what? You do, like, the social media, like, there's the term, like, the scroll hole, where you're like, you've opened Instagram and now you're
It's an awesome term. I'm going to adopt that.
Like, I try really, like, my phone's always dinging, but I have a set, like, I'll work for a little bit and I'll be like, okay, at noon. At noon, I'll check the Facebook group. I'll check my Instagram. I'll respond to everything then. But the other thing, too, is when I specifically time my posts, I time them so that they post and I know I have 20 minutes to sit there and respond to things. Because that helps boost your engagement when you're responding and you're building that discussion. But the other side of it, too, is that I know, okay, I have half an hour to pay attention to that. And then it goes away. Then the do not disturb goes on and, like, the only ones getting through are my kids. because that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I will 100% spend the entire day on Instagram and then nothing gets done. Like my Instagram will look lovely, but nothing else will get done.
Yeah.
So there has to be a hard line.
Yeah. So what would you say is like the most fulfilling thing overall, like just about like everything that you do?
Oh my goodness.
And what like motivates
like-
you to keep going and
Well, fulfilling
like-
in general, like
Yeah.
definitely having kids. Like
Yeah.
that has to just top the list because like they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's also really cool when like they start realizing what you do. So like my daughter's 11 and she's just now she's kind of realizing what I actually do for a living, and she's kind of like holy shit, like she's like you do your own website. I'm like yes honey, I've built my own website.
Yeah.
You printed your own business cards? Yes honey, I did that too. And like so now like she's kind of going like, well shit, like how did that happen, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
because for when they're little, like they don't, like my 4-year-old has no idea what I do.
Yeah.
He thinks I play on the computer all day long. He doesn't know what I do. But the 11-year-old is starting to get it. So there's that level of like work ethic that like you're building into them now, and I'm sure it's a genetic thing. Like I am so sure that like crazy work ethic is genetic because I have like my dad and my brother and my mother. We all have the same ridiculous. We're gonna work till we die.
Yeah.
Like I'll talk to my parents about like retiring.
Yeah,
Because
for
they're
sure.
they're mid-50s.
Yeah.
So I'm like, when are you guys gonna retire? And my dad looks at me like that sounds like the worst thing of
I know.
life.
I was just gonna say,
And
really.
like my mom's like, oh, I'm not gonna retire till I'm 70, and then I'm gonna start a consulting firm. I'm like,
Yeah.
of course you are.
Yeah.
And my dad's
and you can
like,
help her brand it too.
oh, of course. Well, and that was it. Like we were literally having the discussion of how she's going to roll out her consulting brand within time for when she retires. And like my dad was like, well, like the fire department will mandatorily retire him. He's like, and then I'll just keep working for your brother and building furniture and building boats.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Like we don't, retirement is not a thing.
I don't think it ever
If
should be really.
If you actually
Yeah.
love what you're doing, like
Yeah.
why on earth would you
Yeah.
want to stop doing it?
Yeah.
I just think
You
that
just
like
start doing it
yeah,
on your own terms.
You don't
Yeah.
really
That's
have
all
a
it is.
purpose, right? Once you retire.
Yeah.
How long can you stay on the beach and read books for? I mean, like
Oh.
it's kind of fun, but at the same time,
I
it's
tried
like
sleeping in the other day. I didn't have my kids, and I was like, I'm gonna sleep in until like 9 o'clock. It's gonna be glorious. I made it till like 6:45. It was
Yeah.
6:45, and I looked at the phone, and I was like, I gotta get out of bed.
Have to get up at
I can't lay
Yeah.
here any longer. So there is that level of like the hustle on its own is pretty damn
Yeah.
fulfilling. But the other thing that like the really big thing for me and like specifically for my business is like seeing the small business owners like when they get their new branding package and they're
Yeah.
pumping it all over the internet and they're like, look at this beautiful thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they're like so full of passion about what they do. Like that to me is like it's just like
It's actually-
it gives me like like the happy little bum wiggle.
Yeah. And it pushes you to
You're
want
just
like.
like-
that's the question I was gonna
Oh.
lead with next is
Yeah.
I mean obviously you're big into like developing brands, right? And like
Yeah.
you're the professional with that. Like what are some of the things that sort of you can tell us more about the branding itself. I mean,
course.
how difficult is it for most people to sort of grasp that, right?
So-
and what is it that a lot of people are sort of missing the mark on? I mean, like I know it's sort of like a really general question, and it
it's
can't
okay,
really
though.
be applicable to like every single
No, it is.
industry, right? So, but I mean, like with the development of the internet and the way things are, I mean, like obviously it's all about pushing out content, right? But at the same time, it's sort of about
You have to
creating
know
that
your brand
consistency to some
before you
extent,
can
right? Yeah.
Pump content. So there's a lot of the businesses that I'll work with. They'll be like, I need a brand, and I'm like, okay, we can do that. But like, what do? I make art. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are you making art for? Who's going to buy it? And if your answer is anyone who will buy it, then you need to go back and you need to think about your business.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, it's when they come saying they need a brand, then you have to go through okay, who are we selling to?
Exactly.
What does your business stand for? What makes you different? Because 100 bazillion people make art. What's making you different? Why
Yeah.
are you more special than anybody else? So getting them to logically think that through and say like, okay, I'm going to use your example on this wall here. It's like, I build custom barn board art that's, painted in a Canadian theme and like whatever. I source all the barns from Ontario barns. Like, right? It could be anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But being able to say, okay, these are what makes you special. So then you can factor that into the logo design, and you can factor that into the font choice and the way that their voice comes across on the internet. Like you can factor all of that in, but you have to know what that stuff is before you can factor that into the brand. You can't just say like a lot of companies, they come to me after they've tried doing it themselves. So I get the whole, I built my logo in Microsoft Word. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's nice.
It's fine. We can fix it. We can fix anything.
Yeah.
But the issue with it is that they've built a logo that just looks nice. There's no meaning behind it. There's no voice behind it. There's no color. Like, there's no thought put into any of that.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to build a consistent brand that's actually going to grow your business if all you're looking at is, this is pretty.
Yeah.
Because pretty only works until it's not in style anymore, and then what are you left with, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
there's a lot of businesses.
What should they be looking for? Like what like let's say if somebody's watching this, if they're looking to develop their brand, like what is it that they should be trying to develop in terms of actual, the logo design, or whether other consistent things. So like I know it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, but when
like,
they're looking to develop their brand,
Right.
like as a whole, they need to have a logo that is not just like, you can't just have a logo that holding things and hand talking does not work when you're on a podcast.
For sure.
But if you have like,
we'll get more cameras down the road.
That's fine.
You can come back again.
yeah,
we
and I'll
can
just
do
be like,
another one.
look, if you have a horizontal, like a horizontal logo, that'll work great on most things.
Yeah.
But you also probably need a square one, and you need an icon version, and you should have like a stack. Like you need
One
like,
for Instagram, one for
yeah,
Facebook,
you
one
need
for
a bunch-
YouTube, or
you need a bunch
for something
of
else,
different
right?
ones
Yeah.
that kind of coordinate to what you're putting them on. So like what you're going to put on a letterhead is very different than what you're going to put on a T-shirt, right? Like your letterhead is just going to be your word mark. It's going to be fairly formal and very like corporate-y in the sense of, because that's the only time you use letterhead.
And
But
consistency too, probably,
but
right?
it's the consistency.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I have my logo in a whole bunch of different ways, and I can use it anywhere because it fits for everything. And if I know I need it in just a black version, I have it in a black version. So when I do logos up for clients, their logo is not just one JPEG. It's like 100 files, because it's provided in absolutely every format you could need, in every layout, in every color. Like you have that whole package.
But it's more than just logos too, right?
It is.
With
It's
brand,
the
like
brand, it's
what are the
knowing
other
your
things that
voice.
should be
So-
in there?
A big, huge thing is knowing your voice, and the other thing that always bugs me is fonts. If you have a font in your logo, use the same one on your website, use the same one in your print, make sure your colors are the
Again,
same.
consistency, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, get your, you know what I mean, find out what your Pantone colors are so that your green is the same on your website and your print on your shirts on your, like, so it's all the same color. Because there's nothing worse than being like, these are both green. But
Speaking
it's
about
like,
colors too, another question. Like, how, like, I just having like marketing background myself, like people have certain associations with different colors, right?
Yeah, like
do you
color theory and
consider
stuff.
that into like
I do.
when you create brands as well? Like,
Yeah.
is that like a big thing that you
it's part
sort
of it for
concentrate
sure.
on?
There's a lot of businesses and like brands where they'll want to use what colors are just trendy. And like trendy is great to an extent. If you know that your business is going to be selling something super trendy and you're going to sell the business off in a year, for sure we'll go trendy. Because why not? Because it's going to,
Sure.
you know what I mean? You're going to change it in a year anyways.
Yeah.
But realistically, like if you're building out a brand that you want, like you don't want to get your logo redone every year. That's ridiculous. Like if you're that kind of person, sure, give me a call, redo your logo every year. That'll be great. But ideally, you want your logo to grow with your business and you want it to last you forever. So the way I like to do it is like you have your solid logo, but it can be adaptable. So for example, like on mine, I have like a little cartoon version of myself. When I change my hair, I changed the hair on my logo.
That's
when
awesome.
when I got my shoulder tattoo, I added my shoulder tattoo into my logo.
That's
like
so
it's
cool.
because it's a little cartoon version of myself.
It's a really cool
But
idea. Okay.
the other part of it too is that if I want to like if I want to change the font along the bottom, I can, and it doesn't like make or break. The main logo is still the same thing. The brand identity is still the same. But you can switch out those little taglines and you can switch out the little icons, and like you can kind of evolve your logo and your stuff as you grow. But if you just have like, my brand is this water bottle, is it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that? Like, how is that going to... You have to make sure that when you're planning out your brand, you're planning out what am I going to do with it to help it grow? What is it? What will I need in 5 years?
How will it help you succeed right down the road, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
In 5 years, if I decide I want to offer a whole realm of like printing or something, am I able to do that? Is my business able to grow with that?
Yeah.
So, like, it is something you have to consider, because there's a lot of like businesses that will just be like, I'm going to use this chair as my icon, and it's going to be great. And it's like, if you sell chairs, that's perfect, and we can switch out that chair silhouette for whatever chair is in trend for that year, and that's fine. And I have a client that does that, where her interior design business has her main logo like, in her wording and everything, and then it's got a little chair icon in the corner, and we switch out the chair icon every season when there's like a new style of furniture that's in. We switch out the silhouette of the chair.
That's such a cool idea.
It's always a
that's
silhouette.
awesome.
Yeah.
It always is in the same spot, but it adjusts.
Yeah.
So then you kind of have that evolving brand, but it's not. It's still the same. The brand is the same, but the logo can kind of evolve. There's a little bit more wiggle room for it.
I feel like with some companies, like sometimes they'll just throw money at like redesigning their brand.
Just to redesign it.
Just to redesign it. And sometimes I don't feel like it always benefits them.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, and I think that's with the idea of the chair, I think that's a really like awesome idea, because you're obviously you're adapting to that specific season or trend, right? So
and to the people
so
that
if you're
care.
in the business that you know
Exactly.
follows those things, it only makes sense to do that, right?
Yeah.
But whereas with others, it's not always necessary, and I feel like sometimes people just do it just to sort of like a refresher, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I think it sort of throws people off too, because they identify with that, right?
If it's really dated,
sure.
you absolutely should. I've seen some really great logos over the years. But if it's just for the purpose of rebranding, you do have to kind of weigh your pros and cons. It's also not super cheap. Like, if you consider you have to redo everything, like, don't leave your old logo on the shirts that your employees are going in. Get them all new shirts.
Consistency,
right? Like,
once again,
it's
right?
Yet again, consistency.
Yeah.
So for me, I find like there's a lot of people who will say like, well, I need a new logo. Like, I'm relaunching my business. I need a new everything. Okay, but you can't, a lot of small business owners, you can't afford necessarily to do new everything at once. So then it's like, we need to prioritize this.
Sure.
So we're going to do your logo package and your branding, and then we're going to update your website. And then a few months later, we're going to switch out all your postcards and business cards. And then we're going to do your banner. Then we're going to do your shirts. And then, you know what I mean? You build that out a timeline. So over the span of 6 months, we'll switch everything over.
Yeah.
And you start promoting the fact that you're rebranding months before you relaunch. So your clients aren't, holy shit, who's that? Right?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You don't want them going like, I don't recognize the business. You still want the core brand of who you're talking to still be the same people who are listening.
Yeah.
You can't have that whole like, I don't even know, like, just the lack of recognition happens all the time, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But when people look at it and they're like, I don't even know what that is.
What are some interesting success stories that, like, you know, of businesses that you were able to help
So
in terms of like developing their brands and like the things that it's done for them, and like in terms of, you know, like conversions in terms of sales or growth of the business and stuff like that?
So one of my favorites is maybe 2.5 years ago. These two women came and they were like, we built our logo in Word. And they were like, can you build it can you make it a vector? Can you fix it? So I redid their logo, and it started as just that. And they sell leggings, and it was two women. They imported leggings. They were selling them like out of home parties and just like through like local pickup and stuff.
Sure.
So I redid their logo, and then they were like, you know what? Can we get some custom tags made and some business cards? So it's like, yeah, we can do that too. And so we did that. And then like I've been gradually like doing all of their branding and stuff now. Now, 2.5 years later, they have like 70 stylists across Canada. We custom design all their legging patterns, and then we get them manufactured in China, shipped over. All of the
That's
tagging
incredible.
And
That's awesome.
you know what I mean? It went from literally two women
Working from their garage.
from their trunks to, you know, massive warehouses full of imported leggings and stylists all the way across North America. Like it's a huge success, and like the amount of effort that like they've put into their business is crazy. But what they do is they keep their branding consistent.
What's the name of the company? Like,
She's Got Legs.
okay, nice.
So
okay.
they're based out of Burlington.
Okay.
But what they do to keep their branding consistent is they do a conference every year for their stylists. So they get all of those women, to come into wherever they're hosting it. Like last year it was at the Embassy Suites in Niagara at the hotel. And I go in and I talk to them about their branding. And I say, these are your colors you're allowed to use. This is, like, these are your fonts. This is how it should look. This is, because a lot of them make their own graphics. So they use Canva. They use, like, little tools like that to be able to promote their sales and that kind of thing. And that's great. But when you can keep it consistent to the brand, then it's even better. Because then the whole company looks good, right? And then they can kind of share graphics that way, too. So we speak about that. And then they do... all of the patterns and stuff as well are like very similar as far as their branding goes, in that we keep them on trend with like the colors that are coming out for the year and like that kind of thing. So they're all like.
But I think it's great that you're getting feedback from them, right? And it makes them feel a part of the process too. So it's
absolutely.
So it's not just like oh here's this. That's what you have to use, right? So it's kind of like you have to like work with the team to make it their own as well, right? So I think that's important.
And there's a lot of personality. Like you can keep the big thing, like we tell them, is like you're allowed to have your personality that fits within our brand guidelines. Yeah. There's no reason you can't use personality in your posts and that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, like you're trying to get your clients to call you, like to call the stylist, not to call head office.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Like 100% get your personality in there, but like make sure you're using the right color of pink. Right? Like that's pretty much how it comes down. Like. The personality side of business ownership too, like there's a lot of small business owners who always hesitate with how do I speak online? How do I use I or we? Like if I'm just me, like should I make people think that I'm a big company? And like there's always that debate. And like for me, I'm like
that's a really huge thing actually.
It's a hard question. I am a one-woman brand.
Debate,
It's just me. So like I never say we. There's no we, it's me.
Yeah, I think you just have to be open and like honest about things. Like, I think people are sort of gravitate toward that when you're upfront with them, right, about stuff, and like they think, well, if this person is able to dedicate this much time to to do this, I feel so much more like appealing to her just because of that fact alone, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like versus if you go with like a huge corporation that doesn't really have a face, right? So it's, that in itself is
the other side too. Is there's a lot of small businesses where it's like it's scary to hand over thousands of dollars to grow your business.
No kidding,
It's scary. Like let's be real, it is. So for me, I would much rather say I always feel better when I know who I'm giving my money to, right? So for me, it's like okay, we've got. All these small business owners who are trying to build their business, trying to whatever, and I'm okay to be that face of the business and say like, I'm going to take your money, and I personally am going to, I just totally covered the microphone, I'm going to totally take your business and I will personally handle it and I will personally make your logo and your branding and your whatever, because then it builds that level of trust. Yeah, you're trusting me to do it personally. I'm not an anonymous company. It's not going to be somebody else's fault. It's like my own ass on the line. So you can kind of get that whole like everyone's got equal skin in the game. Yeah, because it's if I get a bad review, it's me. On the line. It's not, I can't say,
but people tend to
somebody else
really
dropped the ball.
Yeah.
If the ball drops, it was me that did it.
But people don't always really give positive, reviews all the time. A lot of the times when they do give a review, it's sort of, because they feel that things should be a little bit different, right? Or their perception is different, right? So I think that sometimes it's a negative, but at the same time, it's sort of a learning curve for a lot of business people too, because it allows you to grow as a business and to develop yourself and change and adapt to the things that you need.
Well, and as far as I'm concerned, like when I have clients who are like, oh, we got a bad review, do we turn our reviews on Facebook off? No, you don't do that. Realistically, when you're looking up reviews, if you don't see one or two bad ones, it looks fake.
It does, absolutely,
it looks
100%.
Fake. I would rather, like I have one-star review on Facebook. I've never worked with the woman. There was no wording. It was literally just left a one-star review. Yeah. So I just responded in the direct underneath that just said, hey, I haven't done any work for you, or I don't believe I've done any work for you, and if there's something that I've done as a business that has come across unprofessional in any way, please let me know, and I'd be happy to have a call, to have a chat with you about it. Because then when people are looking, it's like, okay, well, she has this one-star review, and she responded really really positively to it, and invited them you know what I mean, to make that connection and
You make
fix
that
it.
negative into a
You
positive,
have to
right?
always,
So-
you have to always go that one step. Like there's no shortage of ways to deal with a negative review.
Yeah.
You just invite
I-
them
I
to take
think
it
it-
offline.
I think it's important for people to start recognizing that internet's here and reviews are an actual thing.
And
then
you're gonna
you
get
can't-
weirdos
you
that
can't
jump
just
in on
ignore-
your lives
You can't
all
just
the time.
ignore it and
Yeah,
just
for sure.
throw it off in the
No.
corner somewhere because it's
Yeah.
gonna stick with you. It's gonna stay
Yeah.
with your company for a long time.
And you know what?
you need to
Make
address
it
those things,
comical.
right? So
Like
Yeah.
there's so many times, like the internet is full of weird people. So like I've done like Instagram lives where like a weirdo will pop up and being like, "Hey, nice tits," and you're like, "Okay, I was talking about color schemes." Thanks, guy. Like,
Yeah.
but like, there's nothing to do about that except like you see the comment pop up and you just kind of like, well, that's weird, and you just keep going, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just the joys of the internet. It's full of weirdos.
Yeah.
But with that kind of thing, like then you have, like for me anyways, like I'll have my clients watching my live, and that guy becomes something hilarious that we laugh about for days, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, hey Beth, you're getting some weirdos on the internet.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I know it happens.
So,
but-
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, are most of the clients that you work with, like, are they like new startups, or are
So-
they businesses looking like, I don't want to say like struggling, but like, are they
No,
looking
it's
for
not
like more
necessarily that
help?
they're struggling. It's that a lot of times when they're either starting new,
Yeah.
or what they're doing is they've recognized that whole like magical point where it's like their time is more beneficial spent running their business than
Yeah.
it is doing their graphic design.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's when they realize, okay, it's going to take me 8 hours to do it. It's going to take, if I hire a professional, then it's, you know, it's going to cost me 3 hours of my work,
Right.
right? So then
Yeah.
it just becomes a financial thing at that point. Like you're going to make way more money doing what you do than trying to figure out the like how to use Adobe programs,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like why
Yeah,
go learn
it's-
software
yeah.
when you could just pay me to do it and I'll do it in 2
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
right? Like
definitely, yeah.
it becomes much more beneficial. So at some point, like there's that magical cutoff where like a business gets to the size that they recognize their time is better spent running their business.
if you can concentrate on doing sales versus
Exactly.
dedicating
you don't need to
Yeah.
make your own postcards.
48 hours of like studying Adobe or
And well,
something,
that's
right?
what I mean.
So
Yeah.
That stuff happens all the time because we, like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, as small business owners, we have that we can do anything.
exactly, right?
We can do anything, but you have to look at how many hours it's going to take you to learn to do that.
Yeah.
And so for me, even it's like I got to the point where I was like, I was doing my own bookkeeping, and then I was like, ooh, okay. And then like because you calculate your time. So when I did my business strategy, one of the scariest things throughout that week, the numbers didn't scare me so much. Like pulling out all of my income didn't scare me, but writing down how many hours you spend on things. That scared the shit out of me. I was like, she was like, write down how many hours you spend on Facebook, how many hours you spend doing your bookkeeping, how many hours you spend actually doing client work, how many hours you spend blogging, all of that stuff. Write that all down.
Yeah.
When you write that all down, and then you take however many hours that was a week, and then you take however much money you made in that week, and you look, and if you look and you're like, shit, I've been paying myself $6 an hour, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
kidding,
Right?
for
So-
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, like if I got that, and I'm like, I've been running my business pretty well, so I'm like, if I got that, every other business owner gets that at some point too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's important to sort of go out there and like try to figure out some of the things that you're doing, and then like try to put together some sort of statistics about some of the sales processes and some of the things that you do as well, because it makes you sort of realize what it is that you could be doing differently that could improve your business by like such a huge increment.
Oh,
and like I
absolutely.
think that a lot of people are sort of just stuck in that routine, and they think that because it's worked for them for such a long time
That it's just gonna keep
it's gonna
working.
Yeah.
keep working.
Yep.
But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just have to kind of step outside and or have somebody else, like a good friend of yours or somebody who's a professional, right? Give you like a different assessment on
Yes.
some of the things. And obviously that's what happened here, right? So
For me, I think too, the other side, like the other part that is huge for like the way that my business has grown is that I have like, we're super nerdy and we've deemed it the inner circle, but I have a group of like 3 other business women that we've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit, but like we would meet every Wednesday night for a Zoom chat and literally just be like, all right, how's your week going? What do
Yeah.
you, like, are you actually doing that shit that you said you were gonna do? Did you do it? No, you didn't. Get the fuck, go to work. Like, you know what I mean? But
So it's like an accountability.
yeah, and like
a
now
partner,
we
right?
we have that in like now it's just like in a phone chat, but it's the same kind of thing. It's a, what do you guys think about this? Does this sound stupid? If I want to bail on this meeting, is that okay? Like, it's somebody.
I think you should adopt that for your the South
Yeah,
Central
and like to
Ontario
just start pushing them off in
Association, too.
small
Yeah.
groups, right? Because it's having those people that are not, and like not your competition. So like
Well, obviously, yeah.
I believe very strongly in that there's not really competition in business, because like I'm not going to be the graphic designer for everybody.
Oh, of course not.
I would rather them, realistically, I'd much rather them go out, see what else is out there, because then they come back. But I'm also not humble in the slightest.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But there's
it's good to be like that.
Yeah, but there's no difference for having a small group where it's like, they're not your competition. They're going to give you the honest feedback. I'll sometimes say, is this a good idea? And they'll be like, oh, God, no. Don't do that. I don't want to see that. And I'm like, okay, fine. I won't do that. Because we do get stuck in our own ideas.
Yeah.
Right? We get stuck in our whole, like, I'm going to do it this way because it sounds amazing. And then, like, everybody's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Like, that's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's, especially when it comes to the effort, right? Like, there's so many things that I could theoretically do if I decided I wanted to do them. But why?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I've had people be like, oh, well, you could make, like, little cartoons about, like, things that, that bug graphic designers. And I'm like, I could, but, like, there's other
Yeah.
people that do that. And, like, I don't really have the time to, nor
Yeah.
do I really want to. So why would I do that?
Yeah.
But if I had came up with that idea myself, I might run with it just because it was my idea.
Yeah.
So being able to, like, step yourself back and be like, okay, I have to actually look at this from, like, science experiment level, not emotional level, then you can kind of call yourself out on no, that's a really stupid idea.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of them. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I've had those ideas where they came up and then I was like, ooh.
I think
That was
the best
bad.
way to deal with that is you write down the idea, you sort of brainstorm on it a bit, and you just walk away. And when you
Yep.
come back, you
Come
can
back
sort
a
of
little while
reflect
later.
on it a little
Yeah.
bit more,
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't think this is gonna work. Or
No.
this really isn't the thing that I should be dedicating my time to, right?
No,
So
well, that's it. Like, you have
yeah.
to look at the value of whether it either has to add value to your life or money in your bank account. And if it's
Yeah.
not doing either of those things, you probably
because we're all in business to
don't-
make money, right? So
Yeah,
no matter
but
what, I mean,
realistically we are. So
yeah.
it's like the way I kind of go about it, there's lots of things that I do that don't necessarily make me money directly. But like the business group, because it's a free group, like I don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
But I get 90% of my clients from it, so it's 100% worth it. And like realistically, like even if I don't get any, like if I go like a day or two and I get no calls from it or whatever, that's fine because I'm like, look at all the fun they're having.
but I think
Yeah.
it's
So I
also
get that warm,
great,
fuzzy
yeah.
feeling of
Because
like the
it-
small business owners learning things.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of community to some extent as well, and it's amazing that you have all these people that are willing to support each other, right?
Oh,
that are willing to
huge.
even dedicate even like an hour a day just to look and go back and try to help each other. But I think when you're giving off that good stuff from yourself and to somebody else, it sort of comes back to you too, right?
course
So
it does.
it's
And-
important to kind of give back sometimes too, and it's great that you can create this community where people are helping each other.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's it benefits you, benefits everybody else and down the road too. So
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and it grows like because it's been growing so rapidly. There's the whole like every now and then it comes up where it's like, well, shit, should we monetize this? But then I'm like, okay, but that ruins that takes away the goal of the group.
Yeah.
Because like I have looked at monetizing it, and at some point there will probably be the ability to. Like Saturday, like the takeovers on Saturdays or whatever. It'll be like, sure, if you want to take over the group and talk to them, you can. But it's like if you're a business selling to other businesses, you can pay to do that. And then that
And
money,
it only
that
makes
money would
logical
just
sense,
go
too.
to
Exactly, yeah.
fund
Yeah.
the our networking events, so people don't have to buy tickets for that. But that type of stuff, it's the group will never profit off of the small business owners' backs that are trying to learn. Right? If
Yeah,
you're
for
there
sure.
to grow your business and you just want to ask questions and participate and like that, I can never charge for that. Because I've had people go, well, why don't you charge a membership fee? There's so much value there.
Yeah.
There is value there, but like I would when I'm starting my business, when I first started, I would have never thought to pay a membership fee to join a small business Q&A group.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I'd be like, that's really low on my priority list. And
Yeah.
it's not, in my mind, it's not right to profit off of the people who are in the same boat where I'm like, I want to build this community to help these people, and I'm going to be like, haha, and I'm going to charge you. Like, to me, that just seems insane.
I think you're right that, like if you have any sort of offshoots of certain things that can, benefit somebody else down the road,
Yeah.
you should definitely charge for that. But I
But
definitely
the
see
main
where you're with
Q&A,
this.
no,
Yeah.
like
And I think
the-
that in time, if it does scale to such a huge,
Oh, yeah, if you want to offer,
then,
like,
then you can definitely
webinars,
start charging for that.
you want to offer webinars
yeah.
to the small business group, sure, you can pay me, like, I'll take a cut of however many people
Yeah.
sign up for your webinar.
But not only that, I mean,
But-
like you can probably hire people who can manage this.
Yes.
Once it sort of gets outside of that scale
Yeah.
and it grows so much that you actually need to hire people to
Yes.
to manage
There's
that.
part of that
It
where
makes
it's kind of
it
like-
makes sense, right? To
Yeah.
At what point does it become its own entity? Like right now it's a Facebook group. Like realistically, people will be like, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I'm like, "I do graphic design and I run a Facebook group." And people look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, "No, it's like 2,500 people. It's a thing, I swear."
Yeah.
But from that, like I have a side shoot off of my website with like all of our small business blogs, so small business owners can submit guest blogs and business member spotlights where they just fill out Q&A kind of thing, and I share their business on the website, and like so that type of stuff is all free, and that's all built in there, and it just helps them grow, and it helps me find content, and it's what I mean, like the community is there.
I think we'd love to have a couple of guests coming from that group onto our show as well.
Absolutely. We can
I
100%
think
do
that
that.
like
I have no shortage of
we'd
business
love to
owners.
we'd love to pick out some really interesting cases of,
Yeah.
of
Absolutely
businesses and
do that.
people that and
Well,
you know,
there's no shortage of them. There's
Fantastic.
2,500 of them,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's the best.
how do you keep your sanity? Because I mean I've noticed, I looked at your Instagram and I know that you're sort of like involved in some yoga and stuff like that. Obviously
Yes.
it's
I
a
do
part of
love
how it
yoga.
allows you to kind of continue to stay sane with all
Yes.
this stuff that's
So
happening, right? So because
There's a
you're involved
really
in so many
strict,
things.
like, yeah. So like
How did you start off with it in the first place? How did
with
you get
yoga?
Yeah.
Oh, so yoga was actually, so it's funny. A few years ago, I started taking Muay Thai, like Thai kickboxing.
Wow. Okay.
And
Nice.
then it was like, okay, well, I'm short. I'm only 5 feet tall. I tried once to lie an inch on my driver's license. They laughed at me and said no. I'm exactly 5 feet tall. So when I was doing Muay Thai in a room full of men who are all easily a foot taller than me, it was like, I have to be able to get my foot pretty high up to get their ribs. So then it was like, all right, we're going to go to hot yoga because I need the flexibility. So then I started going to yoga while I was also doing Muay Thai. And then, so now it's like, 2 years later, now it's like I love yoga just for the sole purpose of doing yoga. And like the Muay Thai is still a thing as well, although the gym has adjusted the programming a little. So now, and actually like starting today, it's now close quarter combat rather than strictly Muay Thai. So still all the striking and hitting things. So that'll be good.
How does it help you to bring in balance with your
So
life and everything else?
The yoga is just turning your brain off.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how people do anything without having designated time to turn their brain off. Like, when I don't really watch TV, so there's like, people will be like, oh, I'm just binge watching something on Netflix. And I'm like, okay, but I would be trying to binge watch something on Netflix and I'd be running through my to-do list.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not actually, it's just background noise at that
Yeah.
point. So like the yoga was able to like, okay, you're actually turning your brain off and the only thing you're focusing on is what you're doing.
See, the thing is,
Right?
I think you're a creator more so than like somebody who consumes things.
Yeah, so it's,
Just speaking from what you're telling me, right?
yeah.
So
And like the yoga works really well for that. So does the, like, not gonna lie, the Muay Thai and like boxing and stuff. If you just want to not think about things and like blow off steam, there's no better fun than just
are you
hitting
able
things.
to meditate with yoga and stuff like that? Did it come to you naturally or like right
No.
away? Or is this
No,
something that
it
you're
was
sort
a
of
solid learned,
Yeah.
like, we're gonna turn off our brain
Was it
now.
hard to try to like start to
Yeah.
do meditation? and all that?
Even
Yeah.
now, it's still like, if I have a really busy week and then I try to go to yoga, I'll still be like, we're not thinking about that. Put it away. We're focusing on yoga. We're not paying attention to that to-do list. I know it's there. I'm going to ignore it. And it still creeps in.
Yeah.
But like, it's definitely like you're able to turn it off. I'm also like able to go to bed way easier because then you can kind of just, you learn how to turn your brain off. And it goes that way through like all of the hobbies, the same kind of thing, like that, using that ability to like focus and turn your brain off.
The reason I ask is because I've downloaded this app like a little while ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've used it for myself personally. But I feel like when I go out into like a group event like hot yoga or something like
Yep.
that, right? I don't feel the same sort of connection. It's
Of, like,
it's almost like
focusing.
for me,
Yeah.
it's just I have to sort of just to take time for myself.
Yep.
And I've noticed like incredible benefits. I should stick with it more, and I should do it more often. And like it definitely, I feel the benefits because I think what it does is like overall, it just allows you to sort of stretch.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just kind of gets you into the, like that
It just
little bit
focuses
more
you.
of like a zone, right, where you can just.
Absolutely.
If you do it in the morning, I've noticed. I mean, it can have like incredible benefits for you to like utilize that throughout the day because you're just so much more
In it.
like
Yeah.
you just know where you're going, and like
Yep.
no matter what happens, no matter how much anybody can try to throw you off with whatever happened, if a car jumps right in front of you and like you almost
You
get into an
can
accident,
breathe a little better.
sometimes you get
Yeah.
like you get shook up and you're like you can't shake it off for the rest of the day. Whereas with
Yeah.
this, it's just I feel like what it does is it sort of like gets you in that zone, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The reason I'm asking is because I kind of want to get a perspective of other people as to how it sort of benefits them and how is it that
Yeah.
they can utilize it for themselves too, right? So
Like
it's
there's lots of other ways to do it too. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be yoga. So like I've found the same benefit through yoga and weightlifting and box. So literally like very different things.
for sure.
Kicking the crap out of something, sitting down nicely, stretching,
Yeah.
and then lifting really heavy shit. It like you can put your mind in the same spot for all three of those.
Yeah.
Because your focus, as long as your focus is on what your body's doing and how your body feels, then you're able to kind of get out of that list of productivity in your head. Because you're focusing on the physical, you're not focusing on all of the mental shit that you have going on.
I agree. I totally agree. I think it's very different for every single person. Hugely.
It's
It's
And
just
you have
that
to
you
try
kind of
different
have to
things.
find the thing for you, right? Like right now, the one thing I've been doing for like last year is I've been taking cold showers.
Oh yes.
And
I have a
I've
friend that's
noticed
like
I've noticed that it sort of kind of gets you in that zone too, but it's just in a different way.
I
And,
will
like-
never have cold showers. It is the worst sounding thing of life. I did, however, do the polar bear dip.
Yeah.
In
How
January.
was that?
Cold, really cold. It was fine.
What motivated you to
Just
go into
honestly,
that in the first
I did
place?
it 2 years ago, and just for literally just for the hell of it. It was yet again one of those like
One of your
competitive-
bucket list
It was
things?
one of those
Like,
competitive things where it was like my dad was doing it, and I was like, well, I
If
can
you're
do
doing it, I'm
if
doing
you're
it
doing
too.
it, I'm doing it too. And
Yeah.
like my son at that point was maybe just a year, and I was like, I'm totally still gonna run into the lake. I can do that. Like took the baby out of the little pouch and passed him to my mom and ran into the lake.
Yeah.
And then last year it was canceled because of like the ice, and then this year
I heard, yeah.
and then this year I ran it, like this year was the same kind of thing, no problem. I was like, why not? And like, it's for a good cause, why not?
Yeah.
And then that's like one of those things that does definitely like motivate me, that level of like, this is gonna be a little batshit crazy, but hey, why not, right?
Yeah.
Like I ran like Tough Mudder in September with like my dad, my brother, and like that kind of stuff too.
I've
where
had
it's-
friends that have done that too, actually. Yeah.
I'll do it again this year for no other reason than to say that I can, right? Like
Yeah.
it's that type of stuff. Like if you're able to do something, it's in my mind like just go freaking do it. Like
Yeah.
there's so many people that when I was like I'm gonna run Tough Mudder, they'd be like, oh, I always wanted to do that. Well, then go do it.
Yeah.
Sign up.
Yeah.
Put in the, you know what I mean? Spend the summer running and do it.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people just overthink a lot of the,
They do, and
the
it's-
stuff, and then they create these challenges in their own mind where they say, "Well, it's going to be too difficult, or this is going to be too hard." It's
I'm
when
impulsive.
when you do it, you don't really think about it as much.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just in that moment, right? Then you're
As-
like,
as soon as
"Well,
you commit,
the
it's
shit
the
is here.
commitment.
I have to deal with
Yeah.
it. Let me
Yes.
just kind of deal with it, right?" Kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I think that's sort of the issue is that with so much information overload that we have today, people just start making
don't
up
know
their,
where to
their own
start,
like kind of
yeah.
scenarios as to what's going to happen, how is this going to be
Yeah.
hard for me,
Yeah.
how are things going to be difficult for me going down and like
Yeah.
forward, right? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people can sort of just need to drop
Well, and like to
just
put it in
go out and do stuff,
perspective,
right?
Too,
So
like this morning, my dad called and he was like, "Can you do man push-ups?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do man push-ups, like real push-ups. I can do real push-ups." He's like, "Cool." He's like, "Can you do 500 of them?" And I was like, "Well, like not at once. I can do them in like sets, but like not at once. By no means. That would be crazy." So he's like, "Okay, well, we're gonna do a fundraiser in the summer, and we're gonna have 5 of us do 500 push-ups in 5 hours over 5 beers, and we're gonna raise money for the Durham Region Hospice." And he was like, "So you're gonna come do 500 push-ups with us while we drink beer?" And I was like, "Am I? All right, I guess I have to be able to do 500 push-ups.
Sounds like an amazing challenge.
But that's what I mean. So you just say like, okay. You say okay. You put the sign on the calendar for when it is, and you start doing 10. Like the way it'll work is it'll be 4 sets of 25 push-ups every hour for 5 hours. Then there's your 500. So I'm like, okay, so I'll just start with like 4 sets of 5 every hour.
I've noticed with myself too is sometimes when you write something down and you put your name beside it,
you have to.
It's almost like it makes you almost feel like you've achieved that thing, and in your mind it's almost like your mind tells you like I've done this, and there's nothing that's gonna make me like do otherwise, right? So and you just go forward and you just kind of do it, right?
The accountability thing is really, really hard for a lot of people if they're not used to being their own, like I'm used to like the whole like carrot and the stick and that thing, like that's fine. Like you need something else to motivate you, but like bonus points if you're also the person behind you whipping yourself, right? Like it's got to go both ways. You have to have that.
It's challenging for
motivation to do it in the first place, but you also have to be able to call yourself on it when you're slacking.
So what motivates you? What drives you?
Honestly, like it's literally just the enjoyment of the craziness of like for that type of thing. I'm like. I have no idea if I can do
You can have a story that you can tell your grandkids, right? One day.
I will 100% do that, and I will bring my kids, and they can watch their mom be crazy and do 500 push-ups in an afternoon. But that type of thing, for me, it's well, can I do it? But there is, like I said, there is that family motivation in that my family is equally crazy as me. So I will know full well that if that's something I'm doing, my brother's doing it with me, so is my dad. So you know what I mean? Like and like friends and like there's all of that. Like I have a really, really strong support network of equally crazy people who are willing to endorse my crazy. So when I was like, I'm gonna start my business, when I said I quit my day job, I called my family and said, I quit my day job. I'm gonna run my own business. And nobody was surprised. Nobody was shocked, nobody was worried. Everyone was kind of like, well, like what's your...
When you knew what's coming, right?
Yeah, well, they knew
just like what your boss said, right?
The other thing too was like, my mom was like, well, what's your safety net? And I was like, I'm stupidly employable. My safety net is if all goes to hell in a handbasket, I have to go back to work. That's literally the worst case scenario for me is I have to go back to working in an office. With a salary and benefits. Like if that's the worst case.
And you don't have to do your own accounting,
and
right?
I don't have to do my own accounting. So I'm like, if that's the worst case scenario, I think I'll be fine. And like, so everybody in my network has that same outlook. Like, I'm not even 30 yet. So like, if literally I'm like, I have time for at least another, as far as my parents are concerned, I've got time for like 3 other careers. Right before I retire.
I feel like you should adapt some of these challenges to your group and like maybe
100%.
that could be like a driver too, right?
Yes.
So you can challenge people and it can sort of create that perception in their minds that
can you do it?
Yeah, can you actually do it?
There's going to be a lot of like we did an Instagram challenge. When did we do that? I don't even remember. I was probably in the summer or the fall. It was a while ago. There's a lot that happens on Instagram. But anyways, we did a small business challenge where it sent them out a week's worth of, every day it sent them a prompt. So every day it was, share a picture of the faces behind your business. Then it was share one product or service that you do really well with. Share your workspace. And it just... The amount of people where they get to that content struggle where it's what do I post? What do I talk about? What do people even want to see, right? Like, and a lot of people forget to ask their audience, what do you want to see, right? Like, I posted a little while ago just the question on the story and said, what do you guys want to see more of? And I got a lot of like weird feedback of like things that like people were interested in that wasn't necessarily just graphic design. It was like, well, what do you do with your kids when you're working? Like, so I started doing more of like, okay, well, like behind the scenes of like, this is my laptop and I'm at a park and it's -4. But I'm working at a park because my 4-year-old needs to go play, right? So there's that level of like behind the scenes that people wanted to see, but there was also the whole like, well, what else do you do? Because like you obviously don't just work all day. So like they wanted to see more of that like in behind stuff, so it was
it's great because
we're busting out the yoga, right?
It's like they can tell you're so dedicated that even at -4, you're actually still working on their product, right? So that in itself is great.
That has to be
I think that what a lot of people are sort of missing with Instagram and social media platforms is just you have to kind of try out different things
Yes.
and see what works.
Yeah.
And if it works, you can definitely have, have hit the nail on the head. You can just
keep doing it.
try
Yeah.
doing that. I think that the problem is that
variety is important
a
too.
lot of people are sort of kind of turned off because they see such polished,
Yeah, I'm
posts
never
from
gonna
some of
rent
the people,
a car
right?
and pretend that I own the car. I drive a Kia.
Yeah.
I drive like a little 4-door sedan.
I think it's
great.
much smarter to be relatable to people.
Yeah.
And posting like just everyday regular content. Then you have things that are happening around you, right?
Well, and
you
it's
went to a
funny,
fantastic
like,
restaurant or
you
something, like
still
you can share
want
that, right? So
you still want that level of like, people like to see what they want to get to. So I have done the whole where it's like so because I just celebrated my first year, I 100% put on a sparkly dress and I sat there with wine and I had balloons and I was like, I'm freaking celebrating. Because
Good for you.
that's
That's
one
awesome.
of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, yes, you can see the daily grind in behind, but you also want to see the victories. And they want to see the victories where it's like, we're full out celebrating. Because this is all these behind the scenes grind has led up to being able to say that I have a group of 2,500 people and, we have I've redid like 50 brands this year and like, you know what I mean? So you want to be able to push that whole like, all of this work has led to this. So then it kind of shows small business owners, well, if you do all this work, you do get here. You do get to this point where you can wear a sparkly dress and have balloons and celebrate. Because like, if you can't celebrate your own victories, you can't expect other people to. You can't expect them to want to share
I think that's extremely
that
important
stuff.
to
Like
do that.
you need to be able to
have
say,
those small celebrations along the way.
and why not,
And
right?
share
Like,
that with people too. I
tell
agree.
people this is the reality of working really, really hard. You have to be able to take the second and stop and say, okay, you can't just work till you die.
Yeah.
Like you can, but like you have to have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I like to do the whole like, we're gonna work really, 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 really hard, and then we're gonna freaking party. Then we're gonna have a party, and it'll be a networking party, but it'll still be a party.
You always need that balance, right?
Yeah, like so like this year, with me turning 30, my one girlfriend was joking. She's like, is your birthday going to be a networking event? And I'm like, 100% it's going to be a networking event. We're going to be celebrating like 5,000 people in the business group by then, because that's my birthday's at the end of the year, and like I don't see any reason the group can't be 5,000 people.
You should live stream the whole thing and just have like
that's my
an
point.
Instagram TV or something
It
moment,
could
right?
100% just be like, and that's the kind of thing. So like when it's built into your life, I'm like, my birthday could 100% just be a giant networking event, and we'll just push
And
it all
why
out.
not? Why
and
not?
any
That's-
small business owner can come, and we'll just drink wine and tell people about birthdays and networking, and they can pass out business cards and like. Why not, right? Like, it's one of those things where, like, if you're that involved in your community, like, realistically, like, most of my friends I met because they're also small business owners. And so then it's, like, just so integrated.
But it's invaluable
in your
to you
life.
because you've built up that community.
Yeah.
Plus, it allows you to, have that open discussion with them about things and or celebrate together,
Well,
right?
And it's funny. So now when people, it's fun. It's extra funny when I bring people to, like, meet my family and stuff, because my family doesn't default now to like, oh, what do you do? They go, well, what type of business do you own?
Yeah.
And like that's the first thing. Like I'll be like telling my dad about like, I don't know, like a guy, and he'll be like, well, what business does he own? I'm like, he doesn't own a business. He just works for somebody else. And he'll be like, what?
Really? You're gonna
You can date an employee, and you're like,
what is wrong with you?
like mate, and then but it's.
Are you
it's
sure
weird.
about this?
That's what I mean. Like because there's that whole thing. It's like, well, what do you mean they don't own their own business? Because it's just something that I've completely integrated into my life. That it's like most of the people I know own businesses. Doesn't mean they have to, but it's one of those things that's just expected now.
Yeah.
So.
I can't wait to meet most of them.
And
honestly.
I force like a lot of my friends will be like, I have this great idea, and I'm like, you should start a business. And they'll be like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm like, it's fine. We'll still start it. We'll launch it.
You don't
and,
have to do your own account. Yeah, I know a person. I know a guy.
There's
I know a
also the
girl.
running joke too of like, someone needs to just find like a group of people who are willing to execute really good ideas. Like I need like a handful of
You can
like,
help them celebrate too.
college interns that have like the skills and stuff to like grow big businesses but have no ideas of their own. That's what I need. I need a whole group of those.
Yeah.
And then that way when all like the really good business ideas come up in the group or like come up through like Jillian from Hijinks and stuff, like when they have crazy ideas, we can just pass them off to like a college intern and say like, build this startup. Here's an idea. Someone needs to make like a Tinder app for like small business trades, like for bartering, to be like, I'll trade graphic design and I'll trade landscaping, and like you can just swipe based on what you need. Someone needs to make that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't make that, but somebody
We
needs
should start a
to.
company with that.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to do that. But like that type of stuff comes up where it's like we don't know how to. It's not that we don't know how. It's like we don't know how, nor do we really care to learn. But things like that, where I'm like, okay, the small business community needs bartering Tinder. Somebody make that, right? Like, who do you pass
They
that?
totally should.
Who do you pass that to? There's no school for that. Like, somebody should really make a school for that. Like, there's all this small business stuff that like comes up where it's just like, okay, the community is growing. We have all of these options now, and like
I think we live in like really exciting times because
we are. Everything's
the
there's
sky
so
is
many
the limit,
options.
really. Because I mean,
Everything's reasonable now too.
you know, there's so much stuff that's happening online. There's so many different startups. There's so many different companies that are, you know, helping people with so many different challenges. I think that the problem that a lot of people have nowadays is they just don't have the time to do other things.
Yeah.
They're so like, you know, strapped with time. I mean, I get it with sort of business owners, but even with everyday
regular
people that work.
It's the overscheduling. Like
yeah.
people overschedule a lot of things.
But
like
then they do this silly stuff like Netflix, right? Or something
Yeah.
like that. Like
You have to,
if
like,
you're gonna binge watch
look it
Netflix
down.
for the whole weekend,
Yeah, there
when you
goes
could
the
have been
weekend.
doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do have to
You can't really
block-
blame anybody else on that,
No,
right?
and so
Yeah.
for productivity wise, like I do like the time blocking. Like I do the whole every Sunday I aim very, very hard to do all of the meal prep for the week. And all of the, like if it's just me eating, then it's like all my food is in Tupperware by meal.
That's great. I think a lot of people,
Then it's like,
a lot
I
more
know
people should
I'm
start doing that.
literally
I
just
really
eating
think
this
that.
Tupperware container, and I'm one of those weirdos that always has a lunch bag of snacks in my car, because you can never be sure if somebody will have
that's-
appropriate food for you to eat, so you bring it with you.
We'll make sure to bring more snacks next time.
Oh, I don't need snacks. I'm good. I have a thing of food in my car.
Oh, perfect.
But there is that level of like saying, okay, well, I know it's going to take me 2 hours to prepare all my food for the week, and it's better to spend all the 2 hours at once rather than try and fit it in like, you know, 20-minute increments
7 days,
over the
yeah,
week,
yeah,
where it's
of
like
course.
I'm running around like a crazy person trying to figure out what to feed my kids for dinner.
Yeah.
Like, if you know ahead of time, you know full well going into the week that you're going to need to eat food. Right?
Yeah.
So plan that in there. You know you're going to have to
Set
do
yourself
laundry.
up for success, right?
Plan that
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah.
so being able to like time block and say like, especially because I work from home, I can say, okay, at 10 o'clock in the morning, after I get back from the gym, I'm gonna throw laundry in. And then I tell my daughter to switch it over because I forget. But it's still one of those things where you can say like, you can block it out and you can plan your success a little bit better when you know what's coming up. If you have no idea what's coming up, you're gonna be like
Yeah.
running like around with the chicken with your head cut off. It's gonna be a disaster. But yeah, like time blocking is huge, and not enough people do it. And it should be like for your business too, not just your just your housework.
You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming today and talking to us.
No
Yeah.
problem
It's
at
been
all.
an awesome conversation. Do you want to plug anything else that you have happening? I noticed that you're doing
kinds
some
of things.
like special classes where you've invited people to come in for like a small fee and like
Yeah,
try
so
to
I
design like
have,
their own brands.
On April 3rd, I have a Telling Your Business Story workshop with Jessica Waugh and Jody Bond. So that will kind of cover both branding and then like the storytelling aspect of it too. So being able to really effectively show your business's story through your branding, your photography, and then how to get it published. So first off, is your story even worth telling?
Yeah.
What does your business have to actually offer publications and that kind of thing? And like, are you an expert? Have you only been doing this a week? If you have, maybe you're not an expert yet. But being able to submit all of those press releases and that kind of thing, and then be published. So that kind of covers
That's huge, yeah, for
that
sure.
covers
yeah.
that on April 3rd. And then on April 25th, I'm running my second do-it-yourself branding. So there's a lot of small business owners when they're starting. They don't have the money to have things done properly. So
Yeah.
that's like if they already have a logo, but they're short on, they don't know how to pick their colors. They don't know how to find their fonts. They don't know how to find their voice. That workshop really goes through.
How long is that workshop? Like,
They're 2 hours.
2 hours, okay.
Yeah, so that goes, and I keep them small, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
take more than 8 people per workshop because it keeps me able to actually look at their specific business.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of lets us go through the process of picking coordinating colors and accent colors and that kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that that's consistent. So it really is just like a really good focus workshop on the consistency of their brand as they develop it. And then a lot of the time too, like they'll take a workshop and they'll kind of realize like this, I'm biting off more than I can chew. And that's fine too. Then we can kind of work on that kind of stuff. But it does give them a starting point to see if they can do it themselves.
of course.
And then I have like I'm hosting a princess party for
Are there push-ups involved?
no, there's no push-up. Actually,
beer?
There could be, but for no other reason than my one girlfriend who runs Active Parents was like, I'm hosting.
What's Active Parents?
So she runs a giant online calendar for every free event in Halton for families.
That's incredible.
That's
Okay.
really
So
cool.
when you're
Yeah.
like home with kids and you're like, shit, it's Wednesday, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You literally pull it up and it tells you everything that's happening on Wednesday.
Is it an app or is it
It's-
like it's just available
It's
online?
a website for
Okay,
now and a
right.
blog. And then she has like crazy social media too for that kind of thing. But she was like, I'm gonna host a princess party. And I'm like, I want to host a princess party. It doesn't benefit my business at all, except that they'll have amazing coloring pages. But it also is just like I like kids, so I'm like I'm 100% going to a princess party in a dress with the full blonde hair and like just gonna go
I love
and
it.
spend the
It's
day
amazing.
being a princess because this is why I run my own business, so I can say I'm hosting a princess party for no other reason than I want to.
And what is it called again? Active Parents?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
should call her. She's lovely. She would definitely.
Maybe I should bring my
fun.
daughter too.
You should.
Yeah.
100%. You
My
should.
daughter's gonna be 3 years old soon, so
Oh, yeah. That type
it's
of
the perfect
event is
age for that too, right?
perfect.
So
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, definitely do that.
And what-
Other than that, like join the Facebook group.
Yeah.
It's just small business owners of Southern Ontario, and
Where can I find more info about you? Like, what's your website?
my website is bethmwoodward.com, and there's all kinds of small business information, branding information, blogs, all that good stuff, and all the events are obviously up there as well.
Yeah. And as for social media, if people want to follow you.
Social media, the same thing, Beth M. Woodward.
Yeah.
That works everywhere. LinkedIn, Facebook,
Beautiful.
Instagram, Pinterest, literally everything.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's got to be the same. I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time.
Can you tell us more about Pinterest, like just in
so-
closing? Because I think so many people just get it wrong.
Yeah,
I honestly, I'll be
I'm not
honest.
great.
I'm not a pro at this, but
No.
Yeah.
but you being like a graphic designer and sort of
So
knowing
I
about
like
brand.
Pinterest. It's one of those things that your target market has to use it.
Okay.
So for me, like, there's a lot of people that do use it. I don't use it effectively. There's lots of businesses that do, but for me, it really is just like an extra place that, like, it's more of a personal thing for me in the sense that it's like, here's all the things that inspire me. Here are boards on, Muay Thai and shooting ranges and yoga. So it does do a little bit of work for me, but it's more of like a sneaky insight into like all the background stuff
Yeah.
that kind of fuels
Everything else, right?
myself,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of a toss-up there. But definitely not the Pinterest expert by any stretch. Instagram, I can talk your ear off, but Pinterest is kind of...
Maybe we'll have another discussion sometimes about
Oh, yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
alone.
Oh, of course.
Because I think that in itself is huge,
Oh,
right?
we
So
can 100%
that's
do that.
Yeah.
and I think that Facebook has sort of changed a lot too in the last little
Yeah,
while,
social
right?
media is hugely
It's,
adjusted.
it keeps growing, it keeps changing too. So we have to keep up with the times. But
Definitely.
I mean, they can probably find out a lot more stuff,
yeah.
about it. If they get in touch with you or if they
Absolutely.
join the group, right? So
Yeah, 100%. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Lots of experts, too, that...
you were incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk
Yeah.
to us today.
Thanks so much.
problem
We've learned
at all.
so much, and I think it's going to be valuable for anybody that's watching the podcast.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.